Well, we're going to get started. We have quite a few more people registered, but I'm guessing they're banking on watching this as a recorded video. So others may show up, but you guys are on time, so I'm going to get started. So welcome. This is Visualizing Your Future Self, and I'm Mary Kearns. I've been teaching this workshop in various forms since 2007. The first time I taught it was in a yoga studio with real people in real life. And it's evolved over time. The last time I taught it in person was about 1 year ago this week in Brooklyn at the wonderful Anima Mundi Apothecary in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And I can't believe that it's been just a year because it feels like at least 12 years. Anyway, this is my first time teaching this virtually, but it should still be okay. Usually we do some yoga movements, but I'm going to skip that today just because of space, my physical space in this room. But we might do some breath work. Anyway, so in this workshop, I'll talk a bit about visualization, vision boarding, writing down goals, and why all that is super helpful on many levels in your life. And we'll also talk a bit about some of the prep work that helps to make visualization and goal setting and manifestation more effective. And let's see, we'll also go on a journey to meet your future self. And that's sort of the fun part, the meat of this. And if you didn't get my email earlier, it's recommended that you have a journal and pen handy. And if you have some different color pens or a large piece of paper, that's optional. But mainly we'll be journeying, and then you'll be writing down your findings from your journey, which can then be translated into an actual vision board. But you don't have to do that part tonight. It's just kind of fun to have different colored pens for writing down the different ideas that come up, but totally optional. So my background is in developmental psychology. I got a doctorate in applied lifespan developmental psychology from Fordham University. The focus of that was to understand, study, and create programs around optimal development from birth to death, or prenatally to death, really. And mostly I've focused on adults and teenagers. I do some family yoga with children as young as 3 or 4, but mostly I work with adults and helping them to find how to live their optimal lives. I know that's pretty broad. Mostly I do a combination of coaching and energy healing and just reflecting back, mirroring. So it's a lot of fun. I do intuitive mentoring, which kind of combines all those things into one. And as I said, the first time I taught this workshop was in 2007, but I completed my doctorate in 2002 and coaching certificate in 2003, and my Reiki mastership more recently, but became a Reiki practitioner back in 2005. So I've been doing this stuff for a while. And it's fun to combine it all. So I do think it's all related in different ways. We need, in order to be most effective in setting goals and working toward them, it's best to work from a mind, body, and spirit, psychosocial, spiritual approach, because we are all those things as a human. We're not just one-dimensional. And I'm sure since you are here, you know that already. So it's always good to be reminded. So in addition to training in psychology, coaching, and Reiki, I've also studied herbalism for over 20 years, and many different energy healing practices, Christian mysticism, shamanism from a Celtic as well as South American or Peruvian perspective. So I like to draw from different traditions, honoring them. Definitely not, oh, I'm just going to say, not put my own spin on it, not really, just drawing from all these wisdom traditions, because what I've found is that they all have things in common. And it's as if people tens of thousands of years ago already had it all figured out in ways that we've kind of forgotten. So hopefully this is a time of great challenge, but it's also a time of great opportunity. And as systems and ideas start to be challenged, questioned, even fall apart, it's a perfect time to look at things in a new way and take the opportunity to build something new and wonderful. So, and I know you can be part of that. So on our journey tonight, we're going to be visualizing ourselves and what our lives will be like in 2 years in the future. And I just feel like the possibilities are really open right now. So hopefully this will be fun. So normally, if we were in person, I would go around the room and ask you to introduce yourselves. But in this format, I want to keep your anonymity since I'm recording. But hopefully we can catch up at another time and I can learn a bit more about what drew you here and what your goals are for this evening. And it'll be good for you to kind of have an idea of what you hope to get out of this evening, this workshop. So yeah, you may not be watching this in the evening, so I forgot time and space mean nothing anymore. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about, like, as I said, the prep work for the most effective manifestation visualization. It's really important to clear out things that can hold you back. One thing I found in these workshops is, as people are talking about setting goals or looking toward the future, a lot of times self-doubt comes up, or fear, you know, and that's very natural. Change can bring up those feelings, and the idea of setting goals and believing that you can do anything can be pretty scary, because the world that we live in doesn't always support that idea. But we are so much more than just our physical bodies, sort of constricted by time and space, as I was saying. Now with the internet, and we have kind of proof that time and space are arbitrary in a way, as we are gathering, even though we are in physically different locations, possibly even different time zones. So yeah, so we'll get past that idea of limitations. And I know that's not something we can do in one evening, but just to start thinking about that and how that can get in the way of setting goals. So, and I wanted to talk about the value of setting goals too. I always begin this workshop by talking about a study that was done, and now I've forgotten when it was done, but it was quite a while ago, like the 60s or 70s. And it was done amongst men in an Ivy League school, so it was a pretty limited sample, but they had freshmen, they divided them up into a control and experimental group. And they, I guess, interviewed them as freshmen to ask them about what their goals were for the coming 4 years of their undergraduate years. And the researchers wrote down their answers, and they had the experimental group write down their goals, and the other group didn't. Then 4 years later, they tracked these students down and found that the ones who had written down their goals were significantly more likely to have achieved them than the ones who just said them out loud. So there's something about the act of writing down our goals that that helps us to manifest them. And let's see, today it was interesting. I subscribed to something called Daily Ohm. It's a newsletter that each day they have something different, some bit of wisdom, or maybe some course that they're advertising. And today it was the value of setting goals, synchronicity. And they said consciously creating your goals can help ensure that the success you seek is attainable and serves you. Your plan must be conceivable, tangible, and measurable. If you cannot visualize your goal in great detail or believe that you can realize them, you may find it difficult to commit to your goals and make the necessary steps to achieve them. So that is the other part about it, the idea that, well, they say it has to be tangible and measurable. I say it has to be something that you can really imagine yourself doing. And that may take a little work, and that's okay. Part of what we'll be talking about too is vision boards, creating a visual reminder of your goals, because that helps to keep you on track. And by looking at having something to refer to visually regularly helps to make it more tangible, makes it more achievable in your mind. It makes it more real. And that part of that realness is what helps to move you along. The constant reminders are helpful too, because it's easy to forget. Although that study did kind of indicate that once you write it down, maybe it's more likely to be there churning away in the back of your consciousness too. But it doesn't hurt to help. It doesn't hurt to have a daily reminder either. So, so the first exercise I'd like you to try, and I encourage you to write this down so you can refer back to it, because this is the step one in visualizing your ideal future or visualizing where you'd like to go. So my first question to you is, if you could do anything, live anywhere, and money was no object, money was not a concern, that there's nothing, in other words, there's nothing holding you back from your ideal life, what would it look like? And just feel free to write down whatever your heart desires. And I'll give you 3 minutes for that. So just, and you can always raise your hand if you need a little more time. The little hand thing is under the happy face button on the bottom of your screen that says reactions. So as you write down what your ideal life looks like, add as many details as you'd like. Again, the realer, more tangible, the better. I'll give you 1 more minute to finish up. And just a few more seconds. Okay. And you can always come back to that. Like I said, it's kind of the basis, kind of priming your brain for the following exercises. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted you to think about was to think about something that you just love doing, that when you spend time on it, time just passes effortlessly. You get into the flow of it. Psychologist Mahai Csikszentmihalyi came up with that term flow for when you're so engaged in something that time becomes meaningless. You're just in such, you're so in the moment, doing whatever you're doing, so engrossed in it, because it's just so enjoyable or fascinating to you that you the passage of time becomes kind of irrelevant to you. So flow, what kinds of things put you in flow? When you were a child or a teenager, what things could you spend hours doing? And these days, as an adult, what topics can you talk about forever or spend hours researching? Just take a moment to think about that. Like, what are the things that really bring you joy? And then after you've thought about that for a couple minutes, we'll have you write those down. Let's see, I guess what other subjects and topics could you spend hours talking to someone about too? Or what kinds of activities, like maybe talking to people just in general, anything. What makes you just feel alive when you do it? So yeah, so I'll give you another 2 minutes to write down just a list of things that come to mind when you think of being in flow, and being just engrossed, content, happy, timeless. Give you another half a minute to finish writing these down. And remember, it can be anything. This evening, as you're writing things down, don't edit yourself. Don't judge, just go with what your heart's telling you. Okay. Hopefully you've thought about some things that you might not have thought about in a while. Often people remember things like, oh, I used to love to dance. I could dance for hours, or I just could spend hours out in the woods finding bugs. It's really interesting what people have taken for granted or forgotten, things that really, really brought them joy. And a couple of years ago, well, a year and a half ago, I met a woman who was on a trip, there were a bunch of us learning herbalism in Ireland. And this one woman who was on the trip didn't do anything with herbs or healing in real life. She described her job as something that she found really boring and she couldn't wait to retire. And she at one point mentioned how much she had loved and still loves working in gardens and working with plants, and that she could spend hours doing that. And I asked her why she hadn't followed that as a career. And she said that when she was in college, her father had told her, you can't make a living working with plants. So she had gotten a business degree, and she'd faithfully followed that for years, and didn't enjoy it, but was good at it. And she's waiting to retire someday so that she can work with plants. And I was thinking, well, number one, that's not true at all, that you can't make a living working with plants. My cousin and his dad are very successful landscape architects, and another friend, a woman also, and they make very good money working with plants. I know other people who have gardening centers, other people who are garden designers, and they make varying amounts of money, but they love what they do. And so it's just really interesting, these stories we're told, and whether we choose to believe them or not, and how those stories can get in the way of us doing the things that we really love. So that's why it's important to take some time to think about what it is that we really love doing, and try to come back to that, because you hear stories all the time of people that have very weird businesses or careers that they've built from interests of theirs that it turns out other people find interesting, or that they just are so dedicated to that they create something of value from their interests. And yeah, so that's why I encourage people to think back. I once worked with a coaching client who was a very successful attorney, but she was like in her late 30s and so unhappy and actually getting physically ill. So she knew she needed to make a change. And when she thought back to what she loved to do as a child and teenager, she had been a very good ballet dancer. And while at that point she probably would not become a professional dancer, there's still a lot of things you can do with dance as an adult, teaching it and dancing other forms of dance besides ballet. So anyway, try not to lose your dreams. So I ask you to, if we were in person, I would ask you to share what you've written down and then give you feedback on your facial expression, your voice, your body language, because it's really obvious, and you might be able to detect this in yourself when you talk about things that give you joy. You know the ones that really resonate because your voice gets more excited, your face lights up, you become animated, and that's when you know you've hit upon the thing that really is one of the things that you're meant to do in whatever form. I wanted to share this quote from theologian, professor, modern mystic Howard Thurman. He says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So I highly recommend you look up Howard Thurman. I believe he was a professor at Harvard University in the theology department. So yeah, so over the coming days, maybe just continue to think about this idea of the things that bring you joy, noticing what makes time change its pace. Notice when you're in the flow, and notice when you aren't. And also maybe think more about earlier in your life and the things that you loved to do, no matter how ridiculous. So anyway, so next I guess we're moving faster because there's a lot of talking time in this. And as I said, some yoga. But I think what we're going to do is move into the actual visualization exercises. So there are 3 stages to visualization. Preparation is what we're doing now, and then transformation, which is the actual journey, then reintegration, which is as we start to process what we've seen in the journey. And that comes over the course of several days. So yeah, in preparation for the journey, as I mentioned before, there are certain things that can be really helpful in preparing for journeying, but also preparing for setting goals and manifesting. And one of the biggest rules, which I've mentioned a couple times in passing, but it's so important, is just not judge. Don't second guess your desires, your dreams, your wishes. Just go with it and treat yourself like you would treat a young child who had the world and their life ahead of them. You wouldn't, I mean, hopefully you wouldn't try to squash their dreams. So don't squash your own dreams. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes fear can come up. So just stop and sit with that fear, because there's really nothing dangerous about setting goals or making dreams, plans for dreams. What that fear is just a physiological reaction that we've come to associate with fear, because it's kind of an adrenaline rush. But that nervousness, that feeling, is actually adrenaline and anticipation. So for any of you who've ever spoken on stage, I'm sure no matter how experienced you are, there's always that bit of what feels like fear. But if you can harness that, that adrenaline, that energy, then you can use that to be really effective on the stage. It's not like if you go out on stage, anything's going to happen to you physically from being on stage. So the fear is, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? People don't like you and boo you and throw tomatoes. But most likely, unless you have anaphylactic reactions to tomatoes, you'll be okay. It's all okay. And so when that voice of fear comes up, just remember that it's not rational, and that it's also not based in anything real. That it's just the adrenaline that you're feeling that you're associating with fear. And also it could be voices in your head, voices of doubt that have been cultivated in you over the years from people who've tried to protect you in different ways by curbing your behavior. All these voices have had their purpose at some point, but now they don't as an adult. There is no reason that you can't dream and set goals. So again, as the fear comes up, just tell it that you're doing this for yourself, and that you're doing it for a good outcome. And take a few deep breaths, because also that's another way to counteract that perceived fear feeling, is to take a few deep breaths and activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest versus fight and flight. So breathing is always good. So I wanted to share my tips for successful visualization, and I will be sending this out as a PDF, so you don't have to write it down if you don't want to. But so number 1, go into it with a relaxed, positive, and loving attitude towards yourself. And try to let go of any negative thoughts or feelings like self-doubt or fear as they come up. And just simply acknowledge them and release them. And one of the best ways to deal with emotions that don't serve our highest good is to just recognize them and acknowledge them. Even thank them for showing up and trying to protect you, and then let them go as best you can. And you may have to do that over and over again. It's not always just a straightforward process. It can be an iterative process, and that's okay. And step 3, or item number 3, is to ignore the voices in your head that keep telling you what you should be doing rather than what makes you truly happy. So that goes back to the attorney and the businesswoman who could have been a dancer and a gardener. So those voices are very ingrained. And these voices of the world, which are put on us, we become so used to them that we don't always question them when we come up. But a good exercise to do is when the voice of doubt comes up, just ask yourself, who told me that? Why do I think that's true? So if you were the woman who was putting off her desire to work with plants, and the voice comes up and that says, oh no, you need to save enough money for retirement by doing this job that you really don't like, stop and ask, well, who told me that was true? Why did they say that? And again, question these voices of doubt, because again, they might have had your best interest in their mind, but is that serving you now? And especially in these times where things are so uncertain and things are changing, I ask, why wait? Like, why wait to do what you really love? As Howard Thurman says, the world needs more people who are fully alive and fully actualizing themselves. So what does it serve to not try to do the things that you are here to do? And that's part of it too. The things that really bring you joy, the things that put you in flow when you're doing them, that's a really good clue that you're onto the thing that you came into this world to do. Because we all have gifts, unique, special gifts that complement one another. It's like every human has a piece of this bigger puzzle. And when we contribute our unique gifts, that's when it all comes together in a really beautiful way. So, okay, so for the next part of successful visualization is to continue to visualize as long as you need to in order to achieve what you want, because there is no set time limit. And it can be really easy to get impatient if things that you want, like the goals you've set, the things you want to manifest, don't come in the time that you want. But the universe just doesn't really work that way. Time is something arbitrary that we humans have created. And there often are there's so many different factors that can go into the way things unfold. And often when something doesn't happen the way you want, you find that later something better had come along. And sometimes when you get the thing that you thought you want and you get it now, you realize, oh, I guess I wasn't really that great after all. So having that patience and trusting that things will unfold the way they need to is really important. So, and always frame your visions and affirmations in a positive manner in the present tense. So when you, say if your goal is to go on a vacation to Hawaii, to Maui, you might write down, I'm enjoying my beautiful, relaxing vacation in Hawaii, or I enjoy it. So it's happening now, present tense. And, or if you want to lose weight, don't say, I don't want to have big thighs or whatever. And the reason I picked that example is because my sister-in-law, who's a lovely woman, she had made a vision board with some group one year. And in the middle of her vision board was just a photo of a woman from the waist to the knees who had gigantic thighs. And I asked her what her vision was. And she said, oh, I want to lose weight on my legs. And for one thing, her legs were not as big as the picture. And it kind of wouldn't have mattered anyway. But also, so if you're looking at that every day, that kind of puts in your mind that, like your subconscious mind, that's the goal. And that's a marketing thing too. When you have a campaign and you're trying to get people to not think about something or think about something, or not think about something, you don't want to use the word. So you wouldn't say fat thighs, like, no matter how you framed it, because that's the thing that people remember. The negative for some reason gets lost in the messaging. And that's why negative political campaigns where they name the opponent, no matter how disparaging for the most part, people will remember the name rather than the message. So for yourself, for your own little marketing campaign about what you want to achieve, only focus on what you want in the present tense. And also know that this is an iterative process. You can always change your goals. It's not like once you write down your goals that you have to stay with them. If something better comes along or a better idea comes along, feel free to update your vision board or your vision list. And also don't think of yourself as being successful or not successful in this process, because it is a process. And sometimes, some things will come easily and others may take more time. And it's just important to give thanks for what you do have. And I should have started with that gratitude is the key thing in visualizing and in manifesting and setting goals. To begin with what you're grateful for what you have now. Like, just maybe even make a list at some point of all the things that you're grateful for. And actually, I tried that. I did that exercise for several months in 2020, just every night writing down 10 things that I was grateful for that day. And I did it every day, like for 4 months. And it really helps to frame your view of things in a very positive way, because there always is something to be grateful for. No matter how awful your circumstances are, there's always something. And I'm guessing that we all have 10 things that we can be grateful for, even if they're little things, and that's fine. Gratitude goes a long way. Gratitude wires our brains to be more receptive to possibilities, to opportunities. And it also physiologically helps our bodies and our brains, our immune systems, because gratitude and other emotions that are more uplifting tend to negate or what's the word? They produce those happy chemicals, dopamines and other neurotransmitters that are make you feel happy and good. And those in turn help to reduce the amount of chemicals that affect your immune system and your body negatively, like cortisol, which comes from stress. So that fight or flight response produces cortisol and other hormones that can dampen your immune system, cause chronic illness in various forms, inflammation, which leads to all sorts of disorders. Whereas sorry, I'm losing my words. Anyway, the positive brain chemicals, which I should know, and I used to know when I was closer to grad school, not years out like I am now. Anyway, so the happy brain chemicals come about from things like gratitude. So give thanks often, and go out of your way to find the things that you're grateful for. So, so for our visualization exercise, so those are just the prep things and the things to keep in mind over time as you're working on actually manifesting your goals. But for the exercise we're going to do tonight, we're going to start with some relaxation. Because again, when you're relaxed, your body's more receptive. And it can also help you to see more clearly, because as we relax, it gets rid of some of that mind chatter, the chatter I was talking about earlier that can be counterproductive, that tries to talk you out of things. So, and then once you're relaxed, you're going to begin to visualize following my voice, but don't worry if you can't actually see. When I say visualize, It doesn't mean that you'll actually literally see these things in your mind. Not everyone is visual. Some people are more verbal. So you might hear in your mind the journey, the things that come up in the journey, or you just might know. And so don't worry, don't force yourself. Some people beat themselves up because they can't actually see stuff or hear stuff, and that's okay. So it's just a knowing. Because one of the things, or the main thing that this type of journeying does, is just get at your inner wisdom. And you all have that, it's there. It's just that it gets hidden, buried, spoken over by the louder voices in our heads. So, and it'll come out in whatever way works best for you. So you may not have a lot of detail, but you might, again. And then just notice how you feel too. Because our feeling, what we feel is one of the biggest clues. As I was saying before, when you're writing down those things that bring you joy, it's that feeling you get of excitement. So just notice any feelings that come up in this journey, because those will be a big clue as to what your path should be and what will help move you forward. Then, and then as you're writing down your goals, think about how nice it will be to have exactly what you want. So going back to that initial exercise on writing down your ideal life, hopefully you felt some excitement, some joy at imagining what that ideal life feels like. And so bring that same kind of sense of joy and wonder and happiness as you begin to visualize your future self and what your future will be. Then, yeah, and that's that for my advice about as we go into the visualization journey. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. And I should have said that earlier, but even though we're not actually in the room together, you can always ask questions that way. Okay. So, okay, it looks like there are no questions. So we'll start by, I'm going to do a little demo visualization exercise. So I welcome you to get comfortable and sit up tall, just to align your spine, which helps with clarity for this kind of work. And you can close your eyes or just take a soft gaze through your eyelashes toward the floor if you feel uncomfortable closing your eyes. So do whatever comes to you naturally. And just try to, if there are any distractions around you, don't worry about it. Just try to concentrate on what we're doing and don't worry about anything else going on. So I'm going to start by asking you to just bring your attention to your breath. And you don't have to change it in any way or alter it. Just observe it going in and out of your body. Noticing your body expanding and contracting in response to your inhales and exhales. Notice how the cool air comes in and warm air goes out. Whether you're breathing through your nose or your mouth. And take a moment to appreciate your breath. Then see if you can begin to slow your breathing down just a little bit. Just enough. Maybe breathing a little deeper into your belly. So we tend to breathe in our chests, shallow breathing, which keeps us closer to a fight and flight kind of mode. But when we breathe deeper into our belly, that helps us to get into rest and digest, which is where we want to be, to visualize, to journey. Some nice, slow, easy breaths. Just comfortable slowness. Doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Just enough to make your body start to feel like it's relaxing a bit. Start to maybe ease some of the brain chatter. And focus on your breath. And as thoughts come in, you can kind of acknowledge them and let them go. And then imagine in front of you. And like I said, if you can't see something there, it's okay. You can just pretend, imagine, sense, or know that there's a cutting board in front of you. And on the cutting board is a nice fresh lemon. It's just been washed, so it's kind of glistening with water. And next to it is a vegetable peeler. So take a moment to pick up the lemon with one hand, your non-dominant hand. And just notice the weight of it. And bring it up to your nose and sniff it. Notice the texture. Maybe even dig your fingernail into the rind a little bit to release a little bit more scent. And then pick up the peeler with your other hand, your dominant hand, and peel away some of the peel. And then keep peeling until you get through the pulp, the white part. Not the pulp, the part under the rind, whose name I can't remember right now. Keep peeling away until you get to the juicy part of the lemon, the pulp. And see the juice starting to squirt out a bit. Then place the peeler down and bring the lemon to your mouth and just take a little bite of that exposed part of the lemon. Feel the juice squirting out and feel the tartness in your mouth. And then place the lemon back down and take a moment to notice what's going on with your body. Did you start to salivate? Did you feel the sourness? Did you get a little like, ugh, from the sourness? And if you did, that just shows you how powerful the mind is in creating our reality, because there was no lemon there, obviously. But we can imagine, envision, and actually change our physiological reactions just based on our imagination. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so now that you've had your little lemon break, I welcome you to come back to your breath. And just take several slow, deep breaths. See if you can slow your breath down a little bit more, just to get a bit deeper into the relaxation. Inhaling as fully as you can and exhaling as completely as you can. And we'll just do this for a minute or so to really start to get your body relaxed. Continue to breathe in and breathe out. And each in-breath, inhale, just brings in more relaxation and a sense of peace and calm. And each exhale releases any tension or tightness you may be holding. So you're inhaling peace and calm, and exhaling any tension, any tightness, anything that doesn't serve you well. So continue to breathe in and breathe out. And bring your attention to the bottom of your feet and the base of your spine. And imagine that you start to become a little tingly, as if the molecules are moving around, moving apart. Then imagine energetic roots growing from the base of your spine and the bottom of your feet. Begin to send those roots down into the ground, through the floor, down, down, down into the earth, sending your roots into the soil, sending them way down, spreading them out like the great roots of a tree, anchoring you to the earth, securing you, and nourishing you through your roots. So like a tree, you send your energy down, and then you can draw nutrients up from the earth into your body. Just feel that movement of energy to and from the earth through your roots. I'm feeling a sense of calm and security, nurturance, safety, being held, being comforted, being supported by the earth. And as you breathe in and out, your body and your mind become completely relaxed. And you feel quiet and peaceful and content. Continue to breathe in and out slowly, feeling completely calm, relaxed. Now bring your attention to the area between your eyes, third eye. Imagine a light there. What color is the light? It can be any color that you choose. And now imagine that light becoming a beam that extends from you through the ceiling and out of the roof and up into space. Now follow that beam as it extends up into the sky and above your home, above your town or city where you're located. And you follow that beam up, up, up into the sky. And when you look down, you can see your entire city or town, a place you live, laid out below you. So continue to follow that beam up higher and higher into space, beyond the Earth's atmosphere. And you're now enveloped by the quiet and beauty of space. And look back down, and below you is the round blue marble called Earth. So take some time floating there, enjoying the view. You notice another beam near you, another light beam, and it's a different one than the one that you followed up here. So make your way to that other beam and follow that beam back down to the earth. And this beam is taking you to Earth 2 years from now, 2 years in the future. So as you approach the Earth, just notice the curvature of the planet, and the details of the landscape are becoming clearer and clearer to you. Just take it all in. And follow the beam all the way down to where it makes contact with the earth. And place your feet on the ground and look around you. Notice your surroundings. Take in the sights and the sounds, the scents, the textures, anything. Just take note of everything around you. You notice a path leading to a building a few yards away, so walk to the building. And you arrive at the building, it's the home of your future self. So knock or ring the doorbell to get your future self to greet you. The door opens and your future self greets you. So return the greeting. And observe how your future self greets you. What does your future self look like? What is your future self wearing? And what is your future self's demeanor? Your future self welcomes you inside. So step through the door, take a look around. What do you see? And what are the sights and sounds and scents of this place? Now move with your future self to a comfortable place where you can have a conversation. Take a seat and make yourself comfortable. Then ask your future self, what do I need to know to get me to where you are? And take some time to listen to the answer. Now ask your future self, what has been most helpful in getting to where you are? And take a moment to listen to the answer. Now take a moment to ask your future self a question of your own, a question that feels right to you. And take some time to listen to the answer. Okay. And now it's time for you to head back. Thank your future self for taking the time to share this important information with you. Go back to the door, step out of the door and onto the path, making your way to the beam that brought you here. So follow the beam back up into space. As you float higher and higher, look back and watch the earth grow gradually smaller and smaller, leaving behind this world 2 years in the future. Make your way up into space, floating higher and higher. Eventually finding the beam that will connect you back to where you came from, the beam that originally brought you into space. So follow that beam back to Earth as it is today, the present time. And as you make your way back down the beam, just notice that big blue marble growing bigger and bigger as you approach it. And you gradually begin to make out the landscape, the details of the city or town area where you first began. And come down through the building back into the room where you started your journey. Take some time to relax. And in a few moments, I'll count from 3 to 1. And on 1, you'll be refreshed and alert. And you'll remember everything that you want to from this journey. And when you open your eyes, please take some time to write down the things that you want to remember about your journey. 3, coming back to the present time. 2, stretching your body, feeling the floor beneath you. And 1, opening your eyes and feeling refreshed and alert. And I will give you about 5 minutes to write down anything you remember from your journey. And you have about another minute. And then you can keep writing if you still haven't finished. That was only 4 minutes, but it's not, because I can't see well, I'm not sure if you're just sitting there bored waiting for me to start again. So I will just start talking again. So now that you've written down the things that most stood out from your journey, I ask you to take a look through that, or just think about what you discovered, and just note if there's anything in there that you can turn into a goal. So are there any things that you saw or heard on your journey that you'd like to have be part of your life? And how can you get them? And what advice did yourself give you? So you can take a moment now to write down some goals based on what you discovered in your journey, as many as you like. And I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes for that. But again, you can keep writing even when the time is up if you're not done. And pick the things that you most want to see happen. So if you see me move my head, it's because I'm playing the Jeopardy song in my head. Take another half a minute in case you're still writing. And then if you are done writing, if you're done writing, you can look through those things that you've written down as things you'd most like to achieve, and to start thinking about ways that you can implement them. And you don't have to do that right now, but do think about, what steps might you begin to take to get you toward those goals. So the next step, and you can do this on your own time whenever you have the time and space and materials. The next part is to make a vision board out of it. So if you're a visual person, it helps to have images. You can also just have the goals written out as lists if you're more of a verbal person. But I wanted to share a couple of examples of vision boards I've made. So here's a tiny one. So this one I just made in, I guess it was Adobe Illustrator, but you can do it in any form. It doesn't have to have words going around in circles. I just did that. But I just found images or scanned images that I wanted, or just because this is an old one, I'm saying scanned. Now I would just take pictures from my cell phone and plop them in, and wrote down the things that I wanted, again, in the present tense, like I'm thankful that my new book is a success. I'm thankful that we have time for consistent yoga and meditation practice. I am thankful that my business is thriving and growing. So I always add gratitude right into the vision board. And here's a newer one that's a bit more frenetic looking. But this one, I actually printed out pictures of things I wanted to manifest, and put a big fat thank you in the middle, because I, again, lead with gratitude. And this one I did differently. I didn't do the whole I am, or writing it out in sentences. I just put the headlines. So that's another way to do it. And then this one, which when I went to pick it up, it's rather old. It's like 5 years old now. So all the glue came off. But this one was even simpler. I just put pictures of things I wanted. You can see where stuff fell off. Pictures of Japan and Paris and Maui. So all of these things have come to fruition, except I guess all of them did within a couple of years. Well, my husband bought a car just this year, though, because he finally found like 0% interest and got a big raise. So he was able to do that. But the rest of them happened, interestingly, without any extra money. In the case of Japan, I was offered an opportunity to travel with a group to work with social entrepreneurs in northern Japan who had been affected by the tsunami, who were building businesses to try to get the economy going. So I was given a grant for that. And Paris, I have a dear friend who lives there. So I did have to pay for airline tickets, but I stayed in with her for free and she fed me. So it's really interesting how these things come to fruition. And it was again because I had the images there and had these goals in mind. It doesn't mean that's why the opportunity to go to Japan came up, but certainly when I heard about this opportunity, I jumped on it, filled out the application right away, and didn't even hesitate, you know, oh, that's so far, or do I have time, or what about my job responsibilities? I just kind of followed that lead. So I think that's the other thing about manifesting. Like I said earlier, it puts you in, and when, especially with gratitude, it puts you in that mindset of seeing opportunities and being more likely to take them, or seeing the synchronicities. So yeah, so it's interesting. Certainly not everything that I've put in my vision boards over the years have come to fruition. So as I was saying in the beginning, sometimes it's not for the highest good of all, but other times a surprising number have come through. So I encourage you to give it a try. So let's see. I guess that was it. I'm gonna stop recording in a minute. So if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself. But I just wanted you to write down the answers to these, and you can share them or not. But what is one thing that you discovered about yourself today that you didn't know? And what is one thing that you will do this week to nurture, develop, support your future self? Well, I want to thank you very much for coming and being here live. And I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. I have an upcoming course starting in March. It's an 8-week course called Magdalene Journey, Ascending the Tree of Life. And it's based on the Gospel of the Beloved Companion, which is a Gnostic gospel. It's supposedly written by Mary Magdalene, and it's very much like the traditional canonical gospels, but it's got a lot more mysticism in it and more humor. And at the end of it, there's she has a vision, and goes up the tree of life, so symbolically, and each bough on the tree, 8 boughs, she encounters some aspect of herself. I guess Carl Jung would call the shadow aspects that she has to kind of acknowledge and deal with, assimilate, integrate. And so she can move up the boughs. And as she goes higher and higher, she finds a kind of more lightness of being. And so in this course, I'm finishing up one session now, and the new one will start in March. We go each week on a journey to a bough, and in between we do kind of different self-work and addressing the different shadows. And to me, one of the most interesting ones, and I mentioned it earlier, is the voice of the world, the voice that those things that you're told or that you tell yourself that you take to be true and that can often keep you back, hold you down, and aren't necessarily true. So things like that. So it's a fun course. So if you are interested in that, the information's on my website at yourstellarself.com. And I'll be sending out a coupon code for 10% off if you're interested. And yeah, feel free to call me or email me with any questions. And I will also send out, you have my email, you can contact me. My email and phone number are on the confirmation for this class. So feel free to contact me with any questions, follow-up stuff, any wins, any discoveries. I'd love to hear from you. So I just want to thank you so much for coming tonight. And I'm going to stop recording so that if you want to ask anything, feel free. So thank you.